also died. So it's like, just careful.
Okay, so I think
Yeah.
we should probably not do anything about conspiracy theory style dying.
Well, that's not a conspiracy. I mean, they did die.
Yes, but you are insinuating that potentially Kevin Spacey had them killed.
Am I insinuating that, Dan?
Or is it
or am I
just
just asking questions, bro? I mean,
I'm just asking questions. Yeah.
Kevin Spacey, more like keep a good amount of spacey between you and Kevin.
more like keep a good amount of space away. Yeah, for sure.
God.
No, that's good. Okay, well, hey, what do you want to talk about then, Dan?
Well, I'm just saying maybe we've
No, it's
talked
okay. No, you know what? You know what? You have the floor. It's your podcast. What fun topic for the intro do you have that you would like to?
So Christian and I just got back from a cruise where we went and saw a bunch of emos not dead style bands like Newfound Glory, Cartel, Under Oath, and all of this. And really, there was one thing that stuck out to me that will always kind of stay in my head throughout history. And it's on the last day we were there, well, second to last day before we got back, Allison said, "Yeah, I think Dan is young and vibrant." And
I don't think she said that, dude.
"Thank you so much. See, I told you." And then Christian said, "Allison, you've ruined me. Now I'm never going to hear the end of this."
Nope. Absolutely
but
not.
She definitely said it.
No, that definitely did not happen.
I said, "Yep, see, I told you. Everybody says it." And he was very upset. And so I was just very happy that
I'm upset
Allison
that you're
backed me up.
lying now. I'm upset that I'm here and I'm sort of forced to listen to this slander. I
Go
find that
get
a little
Allison.
upsetting.
She'll back me up. I guarantee it. Go get her.
She's actually at the gym.
Oh,
right
isn't that
now?
convenient? That must be very convenient. Okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we've been going to the gym. That's a fun thing that I've been doing lately.
You know what else is fun is when Allison said that I was young and vibrant.
I don't think so, dude. I don't think that happened.
Unfortunately, I'm a
it
poor
did.
college student, so I couldn't go, and none of my rich friends bought me a ticket, so I can't
Christian.
confirm nor deny anything
fucking
that's
Dan.
being said.
Excuse me. I know. Yeah, aren't you the rich one, Dan? Shouldn't really you have just bought John a ticket because
What
that
is
would have
rich?
been the polite thing to do?
What is rich? I don't know what that means. What does that mean to
having
you?
more than $8,000 on hand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then, I'm rich. But also, by the way, wasn't the original plan for John to join you guys in your room?
Yeah.
Which, when we got there, by the way, the rooms were significantly smaller than I thought.
Yeah, I imagine
And the
they would be.
idea of you being in the room with Christian and Allison is probably the funniest thing I can imagine, because they said that the rooms take 4, right?
Yeah.
But you get in the room and it's a tiny hallway with the bathroom door on the right. And then it's the bed with about 1.5 foot gap on each side. And that's it. And then there's a bunk bed that folds into the wall that's above the main bed that looks like a hospital bed.
Yeah, that's my bed.
So John would have slept.
That's my bed.
John, that would have been your hospital bed.
I know.
Would have been
it would have been cool, dude. Nah, fuck that, bro. Like, dude, if there's one guy that I would share that secluded space with, it would be John. No one else, by the way. Like anyone else, if you think we're friends, if you think we're on the level where it's like, oh, Christian would probably, I wouldn't. I don't want you there. You can buy your own. John, on the other hand, I think he could have probably slept pretty comfortably on that bed. I wouldn't have minded.
So what you're saying is you feel bad for not buying him his ticket for your room.
Well, yes,
I
I do feel bad for not buying him a ticket, although I simply could not afford to do it. The amount of guilt that you must be feeling as a guy that could have afforded to buy him a ticket but then chose not to must be overwhelming in comparison to what I'm feeling right now.
I don't know. I mean, I just don't have the experience of owning my own successful business in a metropolitan area like you do. So,
it's a unique experience.
Yeah, and owning a house too. Let's not
well,
forget.
true. And I think right before the recording started, you were telling us about how you're going to make hundreds of dollars tonight out of nowhere because you didn't expect
hundreds of dollars.
Tonight I have a shoot. I will be making multiple hundreds of dollars. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering who really here is who really here should be responsible for John. And I think honestly that's you. So
yeah.
Guys. Either way, I couldn't have gone because I was busy doing productive things in college. So Unlike
please
you
tell
guys.
us about those productive things.
Oh, no,
Was it
no, it's
reading
fine.
a book?
I'd rather hear about your guys' time on the cruise.
Yeah.
Well, look, I didn't have to go to school to learn how to draw an apple, which I did draw one.
You did go to school and learn how to draw an apple.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, I
actually,
didn't
you
finish
did that at school, dude.
What are you talking about?
No, but I didn't have to. Is my point. I already knew.
I don't believe that, dude.
All right. Well,
I don't
then,
think so. I don't think you would have been able to do that without having gone to school.
I don't think we need to dive further into my education. So I think we're gonna just get going.
What
on this.
education? Hey!
Hey-o.
Oh shit! Hello there, everyone. It's Cape Shit. My name is Christian. Phase 2 recap episode. You're here for it. And okay.
And I'm the highly educated Dan.
And I'm soon to be educated John.
Yeah.
And this is. And
Cape
this
Shit.
is Cape Shit. Hey, what's up, fellas? We're here. We made it, dude. Phase 2 done. Now we have
It's
a
actually
recap
kind
episode.
of crazy, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like we're
It is
already
kinda
done with
crazy.
phase 2.
Yeah, we just have one more to go. But it's
One
also
more
the
phase.
longest phase. So
That is
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Well, let's talk about it then. So, as a reminder, Phase 1 was Iron Man, Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, First Avenger, and the Avengers, which was an interesting ride because I feel like every movie there was getting its bearings, and then we got into Phase 2, Iron Man 3, the wonderful Thor Dark World, Captain America Winter Soldier, the Winter Soldier, by the way.
Right. Yeah, he's
are
not
you
the
sure?
Winter
I
Soldier.
don't think
Yeah.
I ever saw a colon.
It's a bad
There's
title.
a
It is a
colon.
bad title.
No, I just think you need
Yes,
to learn
it
how to
is.
name movies. Like,
Yeah,
if
well,
you-
I think I would have named that movie a little bit better.
yeah,
I would
well,
if I was in charge of naming that movie, it would have been Captain America: the Winter Soldier (parentheses). The Winter Soldier is not Captain America (end parentheses).
Yeah, I like that. It's sweet. It's short.
And then-
It's concise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then what? Then someone sees the title and they say, "Oh, Captain America isn't the Winter Soldier," and there's no confusion when you're going in.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. And then it was Guardians of the Galaxy with Chris Pratt in parentheses, obviously. And then Avengers Age of Ultron and Paul Rudd's Ant-Man.
I would
And Paul
I-
Rudd's Ant-Man.
I would love it
Yeah,
if they
I-
just like started a trend where instead of these short little titles, the MCU just started putting like Panic at the Disco, Fall Out Boy titled songs for their
Yeah.
movie titles. That'd be amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a
that'd be
guy
cool.
who breaks into places and then escapes prison and does it while he's really small. Ant-Man.
Man.
Right.
Colon.
That would be
Ant-Man.
colon Ant, because then
Ant-Man.
then you'd go into the movie and then you'd think like, oh, okay, I sort of see, it's like man who was normal man but then got shot with super serum
Yeah.
and now is buff, and what's his name? Question mark ellipses. That's right.
Ellipses.
You guessed it. It's Captain America! Exclamation point. And then you go into the
Sure.
movie and you say, "Oh, that's it's easier to follow." I think.
But wait, who was the Winter Soldier? I'm very
Right.
confused.
Well, see, I still have some questions about that myself.
Well, let's talk about Phase 2 then. So this went from 2013 to 2015, which not a lot of time there. Actually, a lot of movies in a short period of time.
Yeah.
It made $5.2 billion in the global box office.
Only 5.2 billion.
Yeah, only 5.2, but Phase 1 made 3.8. So this was a step in the right direction for money.
Right. Financially speaking.
Yeah, financially, it was the step in the right direction. Can you guess who made the most appearances in Phase 2 of all the main actors?
Ooh, Robert Downey Jr.
Okay.
Yeah.
John?
Yeah, that's my guess too.
Wrong.
Oh my God.
Oh, no.
Was it?
Is it
Um,
Chris Evans?
Ooh, was it Chris Evans?
It was Chris Evans.
I knew
Chris
it.
Evans appeared in 4 movies. He appeared in Thor Dark World as a
Oh,
cameo.
right, 'cause he
Right.
has the little cameo in
yeah.
Dark
Right.
World. That's right. Yeah.
He was obviously in Captain America: the Winter Soldier.
Obviously.
Obviously. He was in Avengers, obviously.
Obviously.
And then Ant-Man's end credit scene.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
that's
right,
true.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Honestly,
So Chris
I
Evans
only
made the most
piled
appearances.
on to Christian's answer because I totally blanked out about anybody's name. So
Yeah, I know. Yeah, me too. I just said the first name I thought of.
It was Joss Whedon.
Whedon,
No, it
yeah.
was
Joss Whedon. Yeah.
yeah, so that was phase 2. It did extremely extremely well. But now we come to the end of it, and as I was thinking about phase 2, I was starting to think about what phase, kind of stood out more between the two, and Thor Dark World pulled down my opinion so much of phase 2 that my first instinct was like, oh, phase 1 was probably better. But it's only because I started thinking about Thor Dark World first. And then as soon as I pulled that out of my thoughts, I was like, okay, yeah, phase 2 was clearly better. But I'm curious.
Yeah, phase 2 is like infinitely better, dude. Although, phase 1, like, I don't know, you had Hulk. That was fun. That's probably the most fun of the movies that we've gotten so far. Like, I don't think anything has been as fun as Hulk. But yeah, I mean, production wise, and even just like story wise, like, I don't know, man. I mean, I think you can draw a lot of comparisons between phase 1 and phase 2. Personally, it's like. But phase 2 at least like stepped it up a bit. Like there was more stuff to like about phase 2. I think some of the like story arcs go a little deeper, which was fun. It's like, and definitely like the standouts of phase 2 like trump the standouts of phase 1 in my opinion. Like Captain America: Winter Soldier is like it's better than anything that really happened in phase 1. Ant-Man, by far, in my opinion, is the best Marvel movie that we've gotten so far. So, I mean, and especially in the context of just like doing this podcast, like reflecting back on it, I'm like trying to think about like kind of what was phase 1. It's sort of like, I guess Captain America and the Avengers would really sort of be the two movies that I can like kind of slightly recall what even happened in them. But like, I don't know. There were a lot more moments in phase 2 that were sort of large,
Yeah, no, I also think that like the first 2 phases, especially phase 1, were characterized by like the whole realistic military operation type of vibe going on for it. And I didn't realize that phase 2 also kind of continues that a little bit, but as we get into like phase 3, and I just watched Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and watching that made me realize how far away we've gone from like that like gritty U.S. Army recruitment ad type vibe to like this other fantastical type of action movies that we're seeing now. So
yeah, I think I mentioned it when we did the phase 1 recap too, is like the first phase was really grounded, and I think that was to get people on board, right? It would have been way more tough to start off with like Iron Man and then go into Doctor Strange and then like Guardians right after that. Like it would have been too much to just go immediately out into space and into these characters that have such huge backgrounds that are outside of just our direct kind of view of life. And so, yeah, phase 2 took it to the next level. And I think we saw the best versions of almost every one of the characters in phase 2, right? So like Iron Man, I think, was potentially close to his best self, meaning we saw more of who he was. It was a more character breakdown of him. Captain America was clearly better in phase 2 than he was in phase 1, at least in my opinion. I think probably the only one that went backwards is maybe
Black Widow. Black Widow, dude, for sure. Black Widow, and then Bruce Banner just stayed shitty. So there was no real
Yeah. I mean, at this point, they're just side characters still.
Yeah, totally. Well, it blew my mind too when we were talking about it, and you guys mentioned that they like scrap the love arc between like Widow and Hulk after that. It's like that's insane. What a fucking stupid movie that was.
Yeah, I mean they don't play it up again, but like they make little nods to the fact that they're close to each other. You know, like
Sure.
they don't ever go back to like, you know, a true love story. I don't think there's ever a kiss. There's none of that kind of stuff.
Even then,
but
it's
like,
not even played as romantic necessarily.
yeah, it's more like, especially as we get to like Infinity War and Endgame and like all that kind of stuff, it's really more of like a brother-sister relationship where, you know, whenever the Avengers are in danger, the first person Bruce is asking about is Natasha, right? But it's never in kind of a romantic way.
But I mean, she kind of already had Hawkeye to like fill that like brother relationship kind of.
Yeah.
So it's like so everyone's just like Natasha's brother. You know, it's like I don't know.
Well, I mean, she can't have kids.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
she is a
kind of
fucking monster. Yeah.
I don't know anybody
Joss.
that would want to have anything to do with that sexually.
God, dude, that's such a standout scene to me. Like, I will always remember that scene. Like, and just how fucking stupid that was, dude.
Yeah, well, you know, we got some feedback about our Age of Ultron episode that we are a very progressive podcast. Because of how much we called out Joss Whedon. So take that, Joss.
Yeah, hey, you're welcome, women.
Yeah. But it is kind of crazy because, I mean, I'll definitely say the first time I watched it in theaters, I don't think a lot of people were thinking about that stuff, but I think a lot has changed since Age of Ultron has come out, which again was like, you know, it wasn't that long ago, but a lot of things like the Me Too movement and things have happened since 2014 or 2015 when that movie came out. I think it was maybe late 2014, I don't know. But man, rewatching that, a lot of it did not hold up. And it's amazing also watching it with you two where you guys are paying attention to a lot of the sometimes smaller details or things that I definitely wouldn't have caught, like the picture frame of the girl on the desk that was like zoomed into for 30 seconds.
Giant titties. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
Dude, it was a focal point of that scene.
Dude, it was. That like yeah, Joss Whedon really wanted to make sure that you saw that.
Yeah, it's also when you're watching through these again and kind of looking for the details, like all of the shots where either Widow or Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy are walking away and you just get their ass shot as they're walking away, right? Like there's nothing else to the shot, no other reason for it to exist. It's kind of terrible.
Yeah, you know, and I kind of think like I don't know. I mean, because you sort of like toe a fine line with that stuff sometimes, right? Where it's like on the one hand, like you know, you can have like a woman in a movie who's just like sexy, like that's like inherent. That's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that, you know. But it's like for sure, I think that. Like the way that women get written in a lot of Marvel movies is like I feel like the way that they get written in a lot of movies is that they are sort of helpless damsels in distress unless they need to like hit someone in the face really quick, and then they do, and that sort of is supposed to excuse the rest of it, you know, where it's like. Because it's like but also they can like fight and do the shit with everybody else too. But then like I mean, and I think like Pepper is probably the best example of this, where it's like every single time you see Pepper, it's like they're trying to sell her as this sort of like capable genius that's even like smarter than Tony in some ways, you know, and it's like you know, but then like really her entire character arc like is just there to like push Tony's along, and she doesn't really get anything like of her own, and after a while it's just sort of like either like develop her as a character or like you know or don't, but it's like it's just weird that it's like, you know, the only thing you can think to do with Pepper is just to like put her in bondage gear again, you know, like and that's just sort of the end of every Iron Man movie.
Yeah, no, it's true, and in fact the first woman-led Marvel movies coming up in phase 3, which is Captain Marvel. But even then that's going to be another tough one. And I think looking at phase 3, that's the only one that I see where I'm like, oh, it's going to be tough. And it's not because, you know, Captain Marvel isn't an interesting character. It's because it was just kind of written boringly, I guess. It was like it was a phase 1 movie, right? It was an origin story that seemed like it should have been in phase 1. And realistically, based on its timeline, it could have been in phase 1.
Sure.
Right? And so it's kind of interesting because you look at that, but then John just mentioned Wakanda Forever, the new Black Panther movie. That movie is 98% women led. Yeah. And it
was so good.
Very good. Like, what a very, very good movie that was. But obviously much further in the future, but we will get Black Panther this coming up soon here.
Oh, yes, we will. Yes, we will. Dude, so I just like watched I think it was like an hour and a half long video essay about Black Panther 1. And I don't know. I guess I don't want to get too much into it now before we watch the movie, but there's going to be a lot to talk about for Black Panther and like the way it was received and the time that it came out for like societal issues and stuff like that is it's going to be cool. It makes me think less fondly about what we just watched in phase 2. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, well, I really think phase 3. Yeah, I'm interested to see how the phase 3 viewings go, because it really does step up significantly. We start off with Civil War, which is the next thing we're going to be watching, which again, the only thing I'd say as we're heading into phase 3 with Civil War, especially to Christian, who has actually read some comics in the past, is this is not comic book Civil War.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It is MCU Civil War.
I mean, and we've already talked about it on the podcast, but like it can't be comic book Civil War without the X-Men, so they have to do something else because the X-Men are really important in the comics.
But so we've got a really good phase 3 coming up. But I'm looking at these 2 phases we've watched so far, right? Phase 1 and 2. And for some reason, before we started this podcast, I think we all kind of looked towards the future and said, like, what would be kind of the standouts? And it seems like Captain America movies have been the standouts from phase 1
and
phase 2.
Honestly, yeah.
Right? It's like, why is this the case, I
know, and I always say it, like, every time it gets brought up, but it's so funny, because I really do feel like if there was one, character within the MCU whose movies I would just fucking hate, I was really expecting it to be Captain America. Like, I completely thought that Captain America was just going to be my least favorite. And as it turns out, Captain America has actually like consistently been my favorite. And not even just movies, just character. Captain America as a character, he's my favorite character. Oh, other than Ant-Man now, I guess. I like Ant-Man more. Ant-Man wins. But, Captain America was until I saw that.
Yeah, because, I mean, what you think about with Captain America is just like the Star-Spangled Stripes and whatever.
Like American exceptionalism.
Yeah, and what my understanding of the character going into this, like before I even saw this first movie, was just that, like the one-note character who was just like really patriotic and strong. But as we go into it, we realize like the idea of patriotism that he's written with is more of kind of like a rebellious type of patriotism, where it's like he's got his morals and he's going to stick to it even if the institutions aren't going to. And I think that's why he ends up being way more of a compelling character, is because he's not really, he's kind of the opposite of what we thought he was going to be in the first place.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because when you think about the MCU as a whole, you think about really the main 2, which is like Iron Man and Captain America. And I was watching the intro credits in our last one for Ant-Man, and I was watching it and seeing how the last 2 characters that are shown in like the intro Marvel credits are Cap and Iron Man. And I don't know, for the longest time, I would think of Iron Man as the leader of the Avengers. But as I'm rewatching this again, I think Cap is really kind of running it, but in such a way that he's not. He's doing it from behind the scenes, and Iron Man is only really sticking out because he's loud. But it's so clear watching this again how crucial Cap is to the backbone of the Avengers.
Yeah, well, I would say that the dynamic is kind of like Tony Stark just does shit and then drags everyone along behind him while he's doing shit, whereas Captain America is more sort of like the rallying force that gets everyone to sign on to a cause and then they all go out and do it together, That's kind of like the big... I mean, you even sort of saw that in, like, Age of Ultron. I mean, that entire movie is just, like, Tony Stark's ego, but that's kind of just been, like, his character the entire time.
Yeah, I feel like the first time I watched through, I didn't attach to Captain America as much as I did through this watch through. It's also interesting watching these back-to-back instead of watching them every 6 to 8 months in theaters and having long gaps in between them.
Right.
Because characters that... make little one-off appearances don't feel as impactful when you're watching them all back to back as they do like when you've waited 8 months to a year to see one of them again, and it's like a Coulson appearance. And I think that's why at the end of phase 1 maybe Coulson's death didn't hit us as hard as other things, but even in phase 2, like seeing Nick Fury pop up in Age of Ultron, it's like in Age of Ultron, right?
Yeah, he's in Age of Ultron.
Yeah, at the farm.
Yeah, shows up at Hawkeye's house. Hawkeye's secret house that he has. It's off the grid.
Off the books.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, even seeing Hawkeye again was, a magical moment.
Yeah, that was
in
a
theaters,
treat, dude. Damn.
Yeah, Hawkeye is an interesting one because they had to have one, I think, that wasn't just a super powered being, but Hawkeye is a tough sell when you got that floppy bow,
Yeah, Hawkeye fucking blows.
Ruins it, dude. But couldn't you also combine Black Widow and Hawkeye's roles together and just have you wouldn't get the family man perspective anymore because obviously Black Widow's a monster, but
right,
you could have just had
disgusting.
her. Yeah, disgusting, dude. You couldn't have her be the everyman, because she's not powered.
But she's very integrated into S.H.I.E.L.D. She's very much like a
so
S.H.I.E.L.D. person. Yeah, but not as clearly not as much. If he was able to do things off the books and have a family and do all this other
right, but the
shit,
only reason that he was able to do shit off the books was because he was so integrated with S.H.I.E.L.D. that Nick Fury pulled a favor for him. So he's the most integrated.
Yeah, I guess I could see that too. Yeah, I think it's also tougher for me to accept Hawkeye because I also like DC. And I think that they did a bow and arrow character way better than Marvel did, which was the Green Arrow. Green Arrow was actually badass and killed people and was really a more intense character than Hawkeye is, where Hawkeye's been kind of just treated as a comedic relief side character with no powers and a floppy bow.
Unfortunate that Arrow got turned into a CW show.
Well, I think Arrow for the first few seasons of it was really good for DC. But anyways, I mean, DC's done TV shows historically before Disney Plus better than Marvel did, except for Daredevil.
But also, you think everything is fucking good. It's like put any piece of media in front of Dan, and he's just like, oh, that was really good.
Yeah, just how I loved Thor: Dark World, right?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But that was
the one that everyone unanimously agrees is the dark hole of the MCU.
What is a pop culture show that you've seen that you were like, this is mediocre?
I just watched The Watcher. I didn't like how that one ended. Yeah, that was
but that was lame.
Show.
Okay, but that sucked.
Yeah, that was
give me an example.
Right, so even you saying that show was not mediocre, that show was awful.
I don't know.
See, of course you wouldn't know.
Did you watch it?
That's what I'm fucking saying.
Did you watch it? You didn't watch it though.
I got half an hour into the first episode, and I was like, this is so fucking bad.
Yeah,
I cannot in good conscience continue.
See, the problem is you're trying to match me to you, and you're like the opposite of me completely. You're not like the everyman in this situation.
Right,
you
like
are the
attractive, smart, funny, charismatic, well-rounded. Very strong, confident.
It's interesting.
Debonair
because
is a word that comes to me.
Debonair, thank you.
It's interesting because only one person here was called young and vibrant by Allison, and I'm pretty sure that was me and not you. So
Did she also call you a genius?
say.
Was that part of it?
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying, dude, like what is mediocre to you? You watch something, you're like, okay, this is mediocre. What is it? What is like your like mediocre thing?
I have two good movie ones that I can break out right now. Signs. Didn't like it. Didn't like it.
Okay.
You know, I feel like just Signs, mediocre. I'll accept that. That was a mediocre movie. Okay.
Not just mediocre, but terrible is A Quiet Place. Highly rated. Awards. People fucking sucking off John Krasinski because of how good they thought it was. That was a garbage ass movie. I'm sorry. Didn't make any sense.
And this is probably to your point where you and I are different, because I fucking loved A Quiet Place.
It's a joke. It's a joke, dude.
It was so bad.
No. You're telling because you liked it because it was terrible.
It's horrible. Like,
okay, good.
But it was so fun. Like I love like in that movie how it's like they're at that farmhouse and they like can't talk. And they like go to the waterfall. And it's like, okay, we can talk here. And it's like, why don't you just live next to the waterfall? And then it's like, and then this movie wouldn't even have to happen. Like, and there's like this one part. It still like sticks out in my head where he has this like down in his like workshop. He has this like whiteboard, and like on the whiteboard, it's like he's written like, you know, react to sound, and then like you know, and then it's like, and then under that it's like, you know, like dangerous to humans, and then like underneath that it's like, you know, like moves quickly, and then underneath that it just says what is their weakness, and it's underlined 3 times. It's just like, this is so fucking stupid.
It was terrible.
So bad.
That actually sounds really fresh out of an SNL skit.
Dude, it's truly like 100%. But again, it was really funny. You should go watch A Quiet Place.
Well, I'll throw out one more example because I just watched this last night, and it's a show that you would go, you know what? Dan would love this because he likes all this bullshit style TV show.
Okay, yeah.
It's on Netflix, and it's called Blockbuster. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it, but
no, but it's funny because I saw one like the splash page for it or whatever, and you're right, that seems like some bullshit you would like.
Yes. I watched like 3/4 of the first episode, didn't laugh once, and turned it off and never watched it again. I was it's terrible. It's really bad. And I thought, you know, Melissa Fumero, I think is her name. She's in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I love that show. I was like, oh, maybe there's some interesting crossover here. And no, it was terrible. Anyways, back to the MCU.
Back to the MCU.
Phase 2, baby.
Holy shit, that
Phase
was...
2!
Phase 2. You know, I did look up, because I think we talked about this when we were watching Ant-Man. Why did they end Ant-Man on Phase 2 instead of putting it elsewhere? Turns out not even Kevin Feige knew why. He was just kind of like, it could have been either the end of Phase 2 or the start of Phase 3 because it introduces the quantum realm. But they just put it in Phase 2 because Phase 3 is too large.
It's almost like the phases don't actually mean anything, and we're just marketing ploys by Disney.
Yeah. They've actually kind of admitted to that, by the way. So like the whole phase thing is kind of going away now, where they still are calling them phases, but what they've done instead now have moved to sagas. So the first 3 phases
anime.
are called the Infinity Saga.
Right. Like anime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like anime, sure.
You ever watch One Piece?
The first 3... No, I never
have you ever watched One Piece?
No.
You ever watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
No.
You ever watched Attack on Titan?
Did one of the writers from The Office make that show?
Yes, actually. It's like kind of insane. Not a lot of people actually know that little piece of trivia.
Yeah, because if the writers from The Office aren't part of it, then I probably won't like it.
Yeah. Well, you should check out Attack on Titan.
Wow, I had no idea. That's very cool.
No, I feel like they put Ant-Man at the end of phase 2 because Ant-Man just fucking owns, dude. It was like they needed it's like everything else in phase 2 was varying degrees of whatever to me, and then Age of Ultron was like a flop, and then they were like, but you know what? We're not gonna do you like that because here's like a good ass movie like right at the end of this.
Yeah, but the problem is they don't make the decision that Ant-Man's gonna come out after Ultron had come out. Like,
right.
So that logic doesn't really.
Yeah, they probably just had like some scheduling issues and were like, it's got to go somewhere. Just slap it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also I feel like it wouldn't have made sense for Ant-Man to be before Age of Ultron, because then the entire time I'd be watching Age of Ultron, I'd be like, where the fuck's Ant-Man?
I do think that the thing is like Captain America Civil War, which we're going to watch next, makes sense to be the start of phase 3. But Ant-Man also makes sense to be the start of phase 3 because both of these movies introduce large concepts that run phase 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because also the end of phase 3 doesn't end with Avengers Endgame, right? That's where we've decided to stop, at least to reassess and understand how this podcast has gone. But technically, the end of phase 3 is Spider-Man Far From Home, which is the second Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird. Anyways, that's why they've moved to sagas. So we've got the Infinity Saga, and then they call the second saga, starting with phase 3. I think it's called the Multiverse Saga.
Multiverse Saga.
Whoa.
Isn't that just
gonna be
every
phases,
saga?
Yeah, which is going to be phases 4, 5, and 6.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Yeah, I agreed.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. That's
guys,
really cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
right.
Thanks, Sean. I know I just said that. I agree.
No, I was agreeing with you.
Okay,
you know what
cool.
I think would
guess
be
we're
pretty
all
cool?
in agreement about how cool that is.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Okay. I think it'd be pretty cool right now to discuss what your rankings were for phase 2 movies.
Ooh,
Oh yeah, okay. Do you have our rankings for phase 2 movies?
No, I mean, like, if you were to think now about the order in which your
okay,
favorite...
so
here's
now
the thing.
I need
My
to rank
ratings,
them all? Okay.
I go by whatever in the moment I'm feeling like
me too,
makes
yeah.
sense, but I bet my ratings don't line up appropriately. So, again, phase 2 was Iron Man 3, Thor Dark World, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers Age of Ultron, and Ant-Man. So maybe from least favorite to favorite, just to build some suspense.
All right, for sure. Okay, I have the list in front of me. I can hit you. So this is least favorite to favorite, a classic Christian rating list. You can form your own opinions about the movies after you've heard me say this, and I would recommend that your opinions match up with mine.
I'm not changing my opinion.
Fucking idiot. That would be really stupid of you. Okay. So I think obviously Thor: Dark World sucked, right? Like, I mean, I feel like that's probably at the bottom of all of our lists. I feel that's almost
fair.
like a given. And I think it would be strange for any other. I think because even if
it's
you
the free
didn't
space
hate
on bingo.
Exactly. And even if you didn't hate Thor Dark World for some fucking reason, I think that anyone would argue that it's the weakest of the phase 2 movies. Even if you found something to like about it, Thor Dark World, it just, whatever the fuck. It was pretty dang mid.
Just real quick on that note too, it's kind of interesting as we're going through and rewatching these and then kind of breaking them down. And again, the distance between movies when these originally came out brought an extra level of hype to people when they went to go see these, because there were even people that I've talked to that have listened to the podcast who then heard about Thor Dark World and went, yeah, actually, it wasn't that good. Some of the hype of just another MCU movie, I think, carried Thor Dark World through its original release, but now it definitely does not hold up.
Nah, yeah, I wasn't a fan. I think that, that's pretty self-evident. I think Thor Dark World is just there. I think I'd probably follow that up with Iron Man 3, actually. Iron Man 3, it had some stuff in it, I guess, that, like, I kind of could, like, gravitate towards maybe, but I don't know. It just didn't like stand out to me in like a big way. Like, I don't know. Again, I thought their sort of portrayal of like mental illness was kind of cringy. And the child actor sucked and like is in fucking 80% of that movie. So yeah.
I have a feeling that our rankings are going to be exactly the same, but we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. So we got Thor: Dark World. We got Iron Man 3. I think that then I would go Avengers: Age of Ultron after that. Just didn't like it really. It had some redeeming moments to it, sure. Like, we talked about it during the podcast, but again, the scene of all of them kind of like hanging out in the bar was pretty fun. I think the portrayal of Ultron was kind of fun. I sort of liked, the violent nature of Ultron too. And I sort of skimmed over it in the podcast. I said it a little bit, but I didn't like draw a ton of attention to it. But that one also, I think that really stood out to me is that, again, like, the woman who's like the doctor that gets mind controlled was like a really shitty actress in my opinion. And and there's like really important, like big dramatic scenes where it's like she needs to fucking bring it and she just like can't. Those like all stood out to me. And then, like, kind of at the end, it's like nothing even really happened. Plot-wise, I guess Vision's here now, and that was maybe, like, the main thing. There's a lot of different ways they could have gone to that, but again, it's just sort of like, oh, this shit, yeah.
Well, and they dropped a fucking, like, city onto the face of the earth.
Yeah. Yeah, they dropped the city on the, but it's like every single person survives, and now we're like, just sort of heading forth, and we're the Avengers. It's just like whatever. Okay, hold on. Quicksilver didn't survive, but that also doesn't really count because he was just introduced in that movie, so I sort of felt nothing when he died. Didn't he also die in like a dumb way?
Yeah,
Quicksilver.
Kinda.
Yeah, he died because saving Hawkeye and that kid.
Right, and the kid, and he gets, okay.
The kid whose
I don't know,
mom
man.
Why couldn't it be
bazungas.
Hawkeye?
The Bazunga Mama.
Why couldn't it be Hawkeye?
Yeah, so, whatever. Age of Ultron, I just didn't care about. I think that I would then follow that up with Guardians of the Galaxy, which, again, I still didn't even really like Guardians of the Galaxy that much, but at the very least, I was like, artistically, it was by far the second coolest one. I would actually say, spoiler alert, artistically, Ant-Man I liked more, personally. Mm-hmm. But Guardians of the Galaxy, big contender for that. It had like interesting color palettes, interesting backdrops, like, when they like go into the city that's like, the severed head of like, an ancient being. That was fucking cool. I thought that like, it's sort of a refreshing break from format. It, of course, wasn't without its issues. Me and Dan had the legendary I am Groot, we are Groot argument during that podcast, which I still think I'm right about. That was dumb, but what you gonna do? And then I think that you follow that up with Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which we just got 4 out of the way. But Captain America: The Winter Soldier, I actually liked it. Like, so Iron Man 3, Thor: Dark World, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers: Age of Ultron, those are all movies I didn't like. But so now, like, getting up to like the top of the list, I actually liked Captain America: Winter Soldier. Thought they did a lot of stuff pretty cool. I thought it was interesting how, a comment I made during the podcast a lot, but it really is sort of the defining feature of that movie to me, is how understated a lot of it was in like a good way. Like, he's like really strong. It's also sort of the first time you start to see like proportional strength to actions, which you hadn't really seen in Marvel movies up till that point. If he hits someone softly, they stumble. If he punches them full blast, they go flying. Like, the destruction is proportional to the action that the characters are taking. And just that elevator scene too. I mean, that just sticks
iconic,
out. Like
dude.
that was just. Yeah, that was just cool, dude. Like, I still, like, remember that. Like, you know, when he sees the bead of sweat going down the dude's neck or whatever. Like, it's just tight. I mean, that wasn't without its problems either, obviously. But, you know, I mean, it was cool. And then I think probably the highest rated, as I already sort of alluded to, for me would be Ant-Man. I really actually liked Ant-Man. I thought Ant-Man was fucking good. I will say, I think it suffered from the classic Marvel shit where the romantic female character was written horribly. But if you can get past that, then the rest of that movie was fucking tight. And I think like maybe the big standout of that movie to me is when he sort of shrinks for like the first time. Yeah. And then he's like going through all the different sort of like levels within that building. And there's just like all that shit happening. And it's all just crazy and chaotic. And also just the humor in that movie too. You know, the scene like towards the end where the train's coming towards him. And he's like bracing to like stop the train. And it's this like giant epic thing. And then it like cuts out to the room. And you see the train kind of just go like... Like, it just sort of, like, fall off the track. It's like, that movie was just, it was good. Yeah. I actually think Ant-Man's, like, a good,
not just a good MCU movie, but like just a good MCU movie,
like a good movie. Yeah, I think and that's the difference between Captain America: The Winter Soldier and Ant-Man to me is that I thought Captain America: The Winter Soldier was good in the context of MCU movies. I think that like you could have just shown me Ant-Man without having seen any other MCU thing, and I still would have liked it. But the scene with Falcon just wouldn't have made sense. But other than that, the movie would have just held together.
God damn, I forgot about that scene with Falcon already.
That's a good, and that's even a good scene. Yeah. And Falcon
it's a great
sucks.
cameo.
Like, Falcon is like a lame ass fucking character, and they like gave him a cameo that was cool and like made me like Falcon. Like it's like that movie they just handled it well. So there you go. So again, to summarize, it would go Thor: Dark World, Iron Man 3, Avengers: Age of Ultron, Guardians of the Galaxy, Captain America: Winter Soldier, and Ant-Man, and that would be my official list.
Nice.
Yeah. So I mean, I was kind of right about our rankings being exactly the same. The only thing for me would be, it would be debatable for Captain America and Guardians of the Galaxy to be switched, or even tied with each other, which is really weird because they're completely different tones of movies and different stories.
Sure.
Yeah.
Completely different kinds of characters. But I don't know. I just don't remember anything that like stood out as better than the other in terms of like quality between the two, other than like Winter Soldier's like really grounded and it's a cool like, I don't know, undercover op like Jason Bourne type of action movie, and then Guardians of the Galaxy is just fucking it's an actual like comedy, space psychedelic comedy thing going on. I don't know.
And also, just as a quick note, too, like one thing I know you always kind of focus on is the effects and the graphics and the CGI and all that shit. And that movie is,
it's all
insane
CG.
World building.
Yeah, it's got really cool art. You saying that makes me want to put it above Captain America, but even then, there's not enough difference between like the level of attachment to the story beats between the two movies that I can find. So I think for me, it's going to be from the bottom up. It'll be Thor: Dark World, Iron Man 3, Age of Ultron, and then Guardians of the Galaxy and Captain America tied, and then Ant-Man at the top. But yeah, I don't know. Iron Man 3, the only thing for me in Iron Man 3 was what's his name? Ben Kingsley?
The Mandarin.
The Mandarin. Cool, yeah, Mandarin was cool. Yeah, I agree.
I like him. I like him
fun.
A lot.
Yeah.
Thor: Dark World. We don't have to talk about that at all.
Yeah,
like nobody wants to talk about that movie. And then I don't know. Age of Ultron was. I'm excited to see the aftermath of Age of Ultron. I'm sad that we had to go through Ant-Man to get to like. Ant-Man was really cool, but the wait time, like I wanted to talk about the aftermath of Age of Ultron immediately. But we can't do that. We got to wait till phase 3.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting because that happens again, by the way. We see Avengers Infinity War, and then before we get to Endgame, we have to watch Ant-Man and Captain Marvel before we get there, which, again, was like a big gap.
Yeah. And two of the weakest movies.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, really?
Oh,
I don't remember, honestly.
Yeah, no, because remember before we started watching Ant-Man, I was like, ugh, we gotta watch Ant-Man. Like,
yeah,
I went into Ant-Man thinking it was gonna be a bad movie because it was so tainted by the memory of Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I kind of put the two together, and that was completely wrong of me. I'm sorry, but Ant-Man is actually good, and Ant-Man and the Wasp. God, it's pretty
all right.
weak.
Well, that'll be a thing to look forward to.
Yeah.
Our ratings were similar, but there's one difference. Thor: Dark World is number 1 for me, baby. No. No, I'm just kidding. So, from worst to best, Thor: Dark World, Iron Man 3.
Sure.
Which, Iron Man 3, I actually didn't dislike it. But if I put it up against all of the rest of the phase, that's just where it goes. It just makes sense. And then I'm gonna go Guardians next.
Ooh.
Again.
Okay.
Interesting.
I didn't dislike Guardians, but I did like it less than I thought I remembered liking it.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the memory of watching it the first time was better than how I felt about it after watching it again,
Sure.
which just put it lower in my mind because I had higher expectations for it. Again, it wasn't terrible, and I think the standout moment was We Are Groot. Obviously, just a really...
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it made a lot of sense. It was really good that he said that.
Yeah, so it all kind of made sense. And but what's funny is when we were on the cruise, on the TV, they were playing Marvel movies. And one of them was Guardians, and I saw again the scene right after he says "We are Groot" and they land on the ground. And this time I was like specifically looking for Groot's remains, and it was
they were just
it
was really terrible. It was really, really bad. Anyways, so Thor, Iron Man 3, Guardians, Avengers Age of Ultron. I put that a little higher because I'm a sucker for team up Avengers movies, even when they're just
directed by Joss Whedon.
Terribly. Yeah. There were enough moments there, like the Thor's hammer scene and the team up and the choreographed fights that really put it above for
and
me.
Even like and honestly, like, even like the Hulkbuster fight, like that was cool.
The Hulkbuster,
whatever the fuck.
yeah.
It had its moments.
Yeah, so totally that stuck out for me. And then again, to match up, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and then Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Captain America, the Winter Soldier, best portrayal of Cap. I love that they really thought about that movie a lot. And for example, one of the things I mentioned when we watched the first Cap was the fact that he was sneaking into this base with a very bright, super bright shield with the American flag on his back. And then in the second one, we get the kind of more Metal Gear Solid style, darker infiltration scene with a clearly less bright Captain America shield on his back. Even his costume was less bright. It was kind of really well thought out. And so I liked that. And then Paul Rudd. You can't say no to Paul Rudd, dude.
It was just good, dude.
Ant-Man.
I mean, again,
was...
I keep saying it, but it's bro, and you know what's kind of funny about the ranking? I think especially in between you and me is it's funny that we basically agree, and it's just where we disagree is how much we did or did not like the actual. Because the ones I put at the bottom because I fucking hated them. You know, it's like you put them at the bottom because you just didn't like them as much as everything else. But it's still our lists are more or less the same.
Yeah. No, it is. It's really interesting to see how that lines up because again, Ant-Man was every part of it was just really good, and I think the comedy was for the first time where it was actually a funny movie where it's the other times I think it was funnier watching all the other movies in theaters with other people who were really excited because you kind of laugh harder in those moments to those movies. But rewatching through phase 2 again, a lot of it wasn't super funny. There were some funny moments like in Age of Ultron, I think, and maybe some in Guardians.
I will say also, before we totally skip over it, the standout sleeper funniest moment in Phase 2 actually that I think can get sort of overlooked, but Iron Man 3, when he's chained up and the goons are there in the room and they sort of are all having their back and forth while Tony's waiting for his suit to come to him out of that barn that it's been padlocked in. Yeah. The kid needs to open the door so that the suit can get out. I didn't like that, but but the two goons and Tony and their back and forth, that actually was standout, probably the funniest scene in Phase 2 to me. But I think Ant-Man overall was a funnier movie, but that was good, that the back and forth that they all had.
I agree that was a really smart, funny, comedic moment. But I think personally the funniest moments were the retelling of stories in Ant-Man, where they did the flashback and
that was good.
Yeah, he would voice all of the characters as they go through it.
Yes.
I thought that was fucking hilarious. Just really, really good use of the storytelling sequences there. So that was good. But yeah, so Thor: Dark World, Iron Man 3, Guardians, Avengers, Captain America, and then Ant-Man.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see the rankings once we're done with Phase 3. Not only because there are more movies to rank, but also because I think that there's a closer, not as much of a gap between each of the movies in terms of enjoyability and quality. At least not as much as there was in Phase 2 and Phase 1. Because to your guys' credit, you guys did rank similarly in Phase 2. But I also think that's due to there being a huge disparity between the quality of each movie. So it's it's a given that that's the ranking more or less. But in Phase 3, I think it's going to be a little bit more ambiguous.
I agree, because when I'm looking at the list, I'm seeing things like Doctor Strange and Spider-Man: Homecoming. They're both really well-made movies that both have good things as part of them, in my opinion. But it's how are you going to rank that against Thor: Ragnarok, Black Panther? We've got Infinity War and Endgame, which are two giant movies that just are next level. I don't know. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to rank Phase 3, because that in Civil War, even Civil War is, I think, on the level of
Civil War is
interesting. Yeah. So it's Phase 3 is going to be really big. And so I'm curious, as we're getting out of Phase 2 now, what are we excited about, I guess, in Phase 3? For me, I'm excited to rewatch these movies. I don't think
for all of it,
out of any of these,
except for Captain Marvel and Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that might be true, but I would say out of all of our Phase 2 podcast episodes, I think potentially the best one was Ant-Man. And I think
so.
It's because we all enjoyed it in some sense, but that we were able to pull out the gripes more specifically. I think as we're getting through the MCU, we're able to be more targeted in our gripes and not just I don't know, from a movie. The rocks didn't look good in the CGI.
By the time we're at the end of Phase 3, all these podcasts are going to be 3.5 hours long if we just dissect everything.
I don't know what I mean. I feel as we look forward, Infinity War and Endgame feels like they're gonna have to be either just super long episodes or two-parters. I don't know, because there's gonna be a lot to talk about when we get to that point. Even Civil War, I think, is gonna be a big discussion as well, because there's a lot that happens in that movie. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of rewatch these movies again, and there's ones that I'm actually excited about watching again, Thor: Ragnarok, Black Panther, just because I just watched Wakanda Forever. But a lot of these too, I've also seen, a lot of clips reposted and YouTube clips and people, on TikTok and things like that of people reposting scenes because there are just so many standout moments.
Right.
In Phase 3.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm also looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
I think that is probably a good phase 2 recap.
Yeah, I feel like
podcast for us.
Yeah, I feel like that's solid. I do have one other thing to throw out there,
yeah?
though, something that
Yeah,
you guys
please.
might find kind of interesting. So you know how we do the Allison's thoughts segment
yeah.
on this podcast. So you know
The famous segment.
the famous Allison's thoughts segment, and how she slept through the original Avengers, and then she also slept through Age of Ultron.
Yep.
She actually had a doctor's appointment recently. I'm airing a little bit of medical laundry, and as it turns out, my beautiful darling wife Allison has a mild form of narcolepsy.
Oh no. So what you're saying is she enjoyed the MCU more than you originally thought.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I had attributed to boredom was actually just her brain shutting down.
Oh no. Allison's thoughts segment has been tainted by narcolepsy. Oh no.
So there you go. Heading into the future. If she's asleep, and that might even be some points for Dan there. If she's asleep in the future, it's probably a mild case of narcolepsy.
Wow.
That's got to make you feel great.
Yeah, there you go, dude. Yeah, you win this one.
Yeah, I'm glad that we didn't let that misinformation stand for too long.
Yeah,
this is a podcast of integrity.
Yeah. We had to make sure the real opinions get out there.
Right, of course.
Well, hey, this has been a lot of fun, and I am surprised we're still going with this through phase 2, but I'm really glad we are, and we've got phase 3 coming, and again, we've decided that Endgame will be our Endgame, at least to come on, at least to then kind of regroup and decide where we're at, but
Sure.
Thanks to everyone for listeing to Cape Shit.
Yeah, thank you so much. John, you want to take us out with some final thoughts?
Oh yeah, unfortunately, I've been busy with school and I didn't do the phase 1 write-up like I did.
What? Oh no, I was hoping. I didn't want to say anything. There was a part of me that was hoping that you had one, but you know what? You can still give us final thoughts.
No, yeah. So final thoughts. I mean, this isn't going to be like a you should do this when you're watching movies going forward, or like people do this wrong when they watch movies and critique them. But something that I've noticed about like taking these movies and breaking them down with you guys is that I have like this image of them in my head before I go and rewatch them. I go and rewatch them and I find a bunch of things and I break them down with you guys. And then like even during the podcast, we'll talk about things and it'll change my mind on like how good or bad these certain elements of the movies are, how well they're told, like certain character beats or whatever. And that'll influence my rating for the movie. Like right after we just talked about it, I give you the ratings at the end of each podcast and then completely forget about the movies afterwards. And then when I look at them after we had broken them down, it's like nothing ever changed. Like just breaking them down didn't do anything to my overall opinion of the movie, except for standouts like Ant-Man, where I'm like, oh, that was just my brain being broken and misremembering things. But other than that, like, I don't know, going back and breaking things down doesn't really change my overall opinion of any of these movies, which is like sort of an interesting thing. But
yeah, I feel like it's changed mine a little bit, so that's kind of a interesting thing. But I also feel like I forget a lot of things that
my memory
happened in
horrible.
these movies afterwards, and I wonder.
Well, also you're doing a podcast with Mr. Negativity too, so ultimately it's like if I throw 500 things out that suck against your better judgment, you're gonna agree with one or two of them eventually. It's like I just got to keep shotgunning them.
Well, thank you, Mr. Negativity.
Yeah, thanks,
you're very welcome.
All right, everyone. See you later.
Yep. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye.
Bye.